The fall of New Terra, the silence was wrong. Captain James Reeves had spent 15 years navigating the space lanes between Earth and humanity's furthest colonies, and he knew the rhythm of interstellar communication like his own heartbeat. New Terra, home to nearly 40,000 human settlers, transmitted status updates every 6 hours without fail. The colony had maintained this schedule for 8 years straight, through storms, technical difficulties, and even a minor meteor strike that had damaged their primary communications array. Now, 72 hours had passed without a single transmission. The silence stretched across the void like a held breath, and every instinct James had developed over his career screamed that something terrible had happened. The UNSS Discovery dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Terra system, its sensors immediately beginning their sweep of local space. James stood on the bridge, his hands gripping the railing as he watched the data pour across the holographic displays. His first officer, Lieutenant Sarah Chen, worked her station with practiced efficiency, her face growing more concerned with each passing second. "Captain, I'm detecting debris fields in orbit around New Terra," Sarah reported, her voice tight. "Massive amounts of wreckage. The signatures match our colony's orbital infrastructure." James felt ice form in his stomach. "Life signs?" Sarah's fingers danced across her console, and the pause before she answered told him everything he needed to know. "Scanning now, sir. I'm detecting nothing, no life signs in orbit. No communications from the surface. No power signatures from the main settlement." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of ship systems. 23 crew members stood frozen at their stations, processing what they were hearing. New Terra had been more than just another colony. It had been humanity's proudest achievement. A thriving world where families had built something beautiful on the edge of known space. Many of the Discovery's crew had friends or relatives who had made the journey to start new lives there. "Take us in," James ordered, his voice steady despite the dread building in his chest. "Full sensor sweep. I want to know what happened here." As the Discovery moved deeper into the system, the scale of the catastrophe became apparent. The orbital stations that had housed manufacturing facilities and research laboratories were torn apart, their shattered remains drifting in expanding clouds of debris. Solar collection arrays that had powered the colony hung twisted and dark. Communication satellites had been systematically destroyed, leaving no way for any survivors to call for help. The ship approached New Terra itself, and James felt his breath catch as the main settlement came into view on the forward screen. From orbit, the capital city of Haven should have been a sprawling collection of gleaming structures, surrounded by carefully cultivated farmland. Instead, massive craters marked where buildings had stood. The agricultural zones were blackened wastelands. Nothing moved in the ruins. "Launching survey drones," Sarah announced, her voice barely above a whisper, beginning detailed surface scans. For the next hour, the bridge crew watched in growing horror as the drones transmitted their findings. The attack had been methodical and complete. Residential areas had been targeted with precision weapons that left nothing standing. Schools, hospitals, administrative centers all reduced to rubble and ash. The agricultural infrastructure had been systematically destroyed, ensuring that even if anyone had survived the initial assault, they would have no way to sustain themselves. But it was when the drones discovered the central plaza that the true nature of the attack became undeniable. The bodies had been left in the open, arranged in groups as if the attackers wanted them to be found. Men, women, children, entire families lay where they had fallen. The evidence was clear. This had not been a military strike against a strategic target. This had been genocide, pure and calculated, designed to send a message. "Sir, the tactical computer has completed its analysis," Lieutenant Marcus Webb announced from the weapons station. His hands trembled slightly as he worked his console. Based on the weapon signatures in the debris and the blast patterns on the surface, this was definitely an attack by an advanced military force. "The computer identifies the energy signatures as matching Krellian weapons technology." James's jaw clenched. The Krellian Dominion, one of the galaxy's older powers, they controlled over 200 star systems and considered themselves the rightful arbiters of which species deserved to expand into space. For decades, they had viewed humanity's growing presence among the stars with barely concealed contempt. Earth's diplomatic corps had worked tirelessly to maintain peaceful relations, accepting unfavorable trade agreements and territorial restrictions to avoid conflict. Apparently, diplomacy had not been enough. Continue scanning, James ordered. I want every piece of evidence documented. If there are any survivors, we need to find them. The search continued through the day and into the night, but no survivors were found. The attack had been too thorough, too complete. 40,000 human beings, wiped out in what the tactical computer estimated had been less than 6 hours of sustained bombardment. The Krellians had arrived in force, overwhelmed the colony's minimal defenses, and methodically erased every trace of human life from New Terra. In the ruins of the colony's administrative center, the survey drones discovered something that made James's blood run cold. A message had been carved into the remains of the central plaza using focused energy weapons, written in both human and Krellian script. This is the price of human arrogance. Know your place in the galaxy. Get me a secure channel to Earth Command, James said quietly. Maximum encryption. They need to see this. The transmission took 3 hours to compile. Every piece of evidence, every image of destruction, every scrap of data that proved what had happened here. James included his own report, keeping his voice professional even as rage burned in his chest. He had seen combat before, had witnessed the ugly realities of conflict between species competing for resources and territory. But this was different. This was murder on a scale designed to break humanity's spirit. The response from Earth came 18 hours later. James was alone in his quarters, unable to sleep, when his personal communicator chimed with an encrypted message from Admiral Catherine Morrison, head of the United Nations Space Command. Captain Reeves, your report has been received and reviewed by the Security Council. The Admiral's recorded message began. Her face on the screen looked older than James remembered, worn down by the weight of what she had witnessed. What happened at New Terra cannot stand unanswered. For too long, we have absorbed insults and accepted restrictions on our expansion, hoping that patience and diplomacy would earn us respect among the galactic powers. The Krellians have made it clear that they see our restraint as weakness. The Admiral paused, and something in her expression shifted. The Security Council has voted unanimously to activate Operation Silent Thunder. All human vessels and personnel in non-Earth-controlled space are being recalled immediately. In 96 hours, Earth will seal its borders. Any non-human vessel that approaches within 50 light-years of our territory will be destroyed without warning or negotiation. James sat forward, his eyes widening. Operation Silent Thunder was a contingency plan that had existed since humanity's first encounters with hostile alien species, but it had never been activated. The implications were staggering. Captain, you are ordered to document everything you find at New Terra and then return to Earth at best possible speed. Admiral Morrison continued. What you have discovered will be broadcast to every human colony and every alien power in the galaxy. They wanted to send us a message. We're going to send one back. The transmission ended, leaving James alone with the magnitude of what was coming. He had served in the military long enough to know that Earth's peaceful exterior masked capabilities that would shock the galaxy. Humanity had not been idle during its 2 centuries of space exploration. Every diplomatic slight, every unfair trade agreement, every territorial restriction had been endured while Earth quietly prepared for the possibility that peace might one day fail. The Krellians thought they had struck at a weak and defenseless species. They were about to discover how wrong they were. James returned to the bridge and gave the order to prepare for departure. As the Discovery began its journey back to Earth, he took one last look at New Terra on the forward screen. The colony had represented humanity's hopes and dreams, a testament to what people could build when given the chance. Now it was a graveyard, a reminder that the universe was not kind to the weak or the unprepared. But humanity was neither weak nor unprepared. They had simply chosen to walk the path of peace, hoping others would join them. The massacre at New Terra had proven that hope was not enough. The galaxy wanted to see humanity without restraint, without mercy, without the careful diplomacy that had held them back for generations. They were about to get their wish, and James suspected they would regret it. As the Discovery jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving the dead world behind, a message was already spreading across human space. Every colony, every research station, every ship received the same transmission. Come home, prepare for war, and remember New Terra. The age of human patience was over. The age of human retribution was beginning. The Reckoning, the Krellian war fleet, emerged from hyperspace with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. 300 warships, each one a monument to centuries of military dominance, arranged themselves in the traditional Krellian attack formation known as the Talon of Supremacy. At the center of this armada, aboard the flagship Eternal Dominance, Supreme Commander Valtrix stood before the massive viewing ports, his scaled skin gleaming under the harsh lighting of the command deck. Valtrix had led 43 successful campaigns against species that had dared to challenge Krellian authority. Humanity would be number 44. The destruction of their pathetic colony at New Terra had been meant as a lesson, a demonstration of what happened to inferior species who expanded beyond their rightful boundaries. Instead, the humans had issued an ultimatum, sealed their borders, and actually threatened to attack any Krellian vessel that approached their territory. The audacity was almost amusing. Almost. "Status report," Valtrix commanded, his voice a deep rumble that carried across the bridge. His tactical officer, a younger Krellian named Threx, consulted his displays before responding. "Supreme Commander, we have entered the outer boundary of the human exclusion zone. Long-range sensors detect a significant human fleet arranged in defensive positions around their home system. Initial counts suggest approximately 1,500 vessels." Valtrix's mouth curved in what passed for a smile among his species. 1,500 ships built by a species that has been in space for barely 2 centuries. They think numbers will save them from Krellian superiority. He turned to face his command staff. "Prepare for battle. We will crush their fleet, occupy their homeworld, and teach the entire galaxy what happens to those who defy the Dominion." The Krellian armada advanced deeper into human space, their weapon systems charging, their shields at maximum power. They had faced larger fleets before and emerged victorious through superior technology and centuries of combat experience. Nothing in their intelligence suggested that humans possessed weapons capable of threatening Krellian warships. That intelligence was about to prove catastrophically wrong. Admiral Rebecca Torres stood on the bridge of the UNSS Vindication, Earth's command vessel, watching the tactical display as the Krellian fleet approached. Around her homeworld, the human defensive fleet waited in perfect formation, each ship connected to a battle network that processed information faster than any individual commander could manage. But the ships visible on sensors were only part of Earth's response. "Admiral, the Krellians have crossed the 50-light-year boundary," her tactical officer reported. "They're continuing to advance. Estimate contact in 40 minutes at current speed." Rebecca nodded slowly, her expression calm despite the magnitude of what was about to unfold. "Open a channel to the Krellian flagship. One last chance." The communication was established within seconds, and Supreme Commander Valtrix's face appeared on the main screen. His reptilian features twisted in what might have been contempt as he regarded the human admiral. "Admiral Torres," Valtrix began, his translator rendering his hissing speech into flat, emotionless English. "I am pleased that you know your place enough to surrender before we are forced to destroy your fleet. Humanity will be permitted to survive as a client species under Krellian oversight. Your expansion into the galaxy is over." Rebecca's expression didn't change. "Supreme Commander, you destroyed New Terra. You murdered 40,000 civilians, including 8,000 children. You did this to send us a message about power and dominance." She paused, letting the words hang in the space between them. "We received your message. Now you're going to receive ours." Valtrix's eyes narrowed. "You dare threaten the Krellian Dominion?" "Your primitive weapons cannot—" "You were warned not to enter our space," Rebecca interrupted, her voice cold as the void between stars. "You chose to ignore that warning. What happens next is entirely your responsibility." She made a cutting gesture, and the communication link terminated. On the tactical display, the Krellian fleet continued its advance, now accelerating toward Earth's defensive perimeter. Valtrix, furious at the humans' insolence, had ordered his ships to attack speed. He would teach these upstart primitives a lesson in humility that would echo through history. "All ships," Rebecca announced across the fleet-wide channel. "Execute Protocol Hammer. Show them what humanity has been building." Across the solar system, concealed weapons platforms that had been hidden for decades suddenly activated. Earth's moon, Mars, the asteroid belt, even seemingly empty regions of space lit up with power signatures as camouflaged installations revealed themselves. These were not conventional weapons. They were the result of 200 years of relentless research and development, combining captured alien technology with human innovation and engineering. The first indication that something was wrong came when the Krellian fleet's forward elements suddenly lost power. Their shields flickered and died. Their weapon systems went dark and their propulsion failed all at once. Hundreds of warships, each one a masterpiece of military engineering, became inert metal drifting through space. What is happening? Valtrix roared, watching his tactical display dissolve into chaos. Why have our ships lost power? His science officer worked frantically at his station, his scaled hands shaking. Supreme Commander, we're detecting some kind of field effect unlike anything in our databases. It's targeting our power generation systems directly, causing cascading failures across all our zero-point reactors. The effect spread through the Krellian formation like a wave, each ship going dark in turn. Within 5 minutes, the entire armada was dead in space, their crews trapped inside powerless vessels with life support running on emergency batteries that would last perhaps 12 hours. Valtrix stared at the forward viewport in disbelief as the human fleet began to advance. But these were not the same ships his sensors had detected earlier. New vessels were appearing, emerging from concealment fields that had hidden them from every scanning technology the Krellians possessed. These ships were larger, sleeker, and radiated power signatures that dwarfed anything in the Krellian arsenal. The Vindication led the advance, and Rebecca watched as her fleet surrounded the helpless Krellian armada. "Restore power to the Krellian flagship only," she ordered. "Let them see what they're facing." Systems aboard the Eternal Dominance flickered back to life, and Valtrix found himself able to access sensors again. What he saw made his blood run cold. The human fleet now numbered over 3,000 vessels, each one equipped with technology that his science officer was reporting as being decades or even centuries ahead of Krellian capabilities. Weapons that could manipulate fundamental forces, shields that bent space itself, propulsion systems that made Krellian drives look primitive by comparison. "How?" Valtrix whispered, his confidence shattered. "You were supposed to be inferior. You were supposed to be weak." Rebecca's voice came over the communication channel, calm and inexorable. "We were never weak, Supreme Commander. We chose peace. We chose diplomacy. We chose to try to coexist with the other species in this galaxy, because we hoped there was a better way than endless conflict." Her voice hardened. "You mistook our choice for inability. You murdered our people to prove your dominance. Now you're going to learn the difference between choosing not to fight and being unable to fight." The human fleet began moving the disabled Krellian ships, gathering them together like a farmer collecting scattered livestock. Valtrix realized with growing horror that they were being herded, pushed back along the path they had come, back toward Krellian space. "What are you doing?" Valtrix demanded. "If you're going to destroy us, do it now." "Destroy you?" Rebecca's laugh was bitter. "That would be mercy. And mercy is what got 40,000 of our people killed." "No, Supreme Commander, we're taking you home. We're taking your entire fleet back to the Krellian homeworld, and we're going to make sure every species in the galaxy watches what happens when you push humanity too far." The journey back to Krellian space took 3 days. 3 days during which the captured armada was paraded through systems controlled by a dozen different species, all of whom watched in shock as the supposedly invincible Krellian fleet was hauled like cargo by human vessels. News of the Krellian defeat spread like wildfire through the galactic community, and with it came a revelation that left the ancient powers reeling. Humanity had never been the peaceful, weak species they had appeared to be. They had been preparing, building, researching, and developing weapons and technology in secret, while presenting a diplomatic face to the galaxy. Every slight they had endured, every unfair agreement they had accepted, had bought them time to become something the galaxy had never seen before. A species with both overwhelming military capability and the restraint to use it only when absolutely necessary. When the human fleet arrived at the Krellian homeworld, they found the planet's defenses fully activated, orbital weapons platforms charged and ready. The Krellian military command, desperate to salvage their reputation, ordered their home fleet to attack despite the obvious technological disadvantage. Rebecca gave them one warning. Just one. When they opened fire anyway, the human response was swift and devastating. The orbital platforms were disabled in seconds. The defending fleet found their weapons useless against human shields and their own shields useless against human weapons. Within an hour, the entire Krellian home defense network was neutralized without a single ship being destroyed. "Attention Krellian leadership," Rebecca broadcast on every frequency. You chose to attack our colony. You chose to murder our people. You chose to ignore our warnings. Now you will face the consequences. The human fleet positioned itself in orbit around the Krellian homeworld. Weapons trained on every major city and military installation. For 72 hours they held that position while the entire galaxy watched and waited. The Krellians, masters of hundreds of systems, conquerors of countless species, were completely at humanity's mercy. Then Rebecca made her announcement, broadcasting it across every communication channel in known space. The Krellian dominion is hereby dissolved. All species under Krellian control are now free to govern themselves. All Krellian military vessels will be decommissioned and scrapped. The Krellian homeworld will be placed under a monitoring system to ensure they never again threaten peaceful species. She paused, letting the magnitude of her words sink in, and to every other power in this galaxy who might consider testing humanity's resolve. We did not want this war. We tried for 2 centuries to coexist peacefully, but New Terra taught us that there are species who view peace as weakness and mercy as invitation to violence. Her voice grew harder, colder. Humanity will return to pursuing peaceful relations with all species who prove capable of honoring such peace. But understand this clearly. We are not pacifists. We are not weak. We simply chose not to be conquerors. That choice remains in effect, but only for those who respect it. Anyone who harms human civilians, who attacks our worlds, who mistakes our restraint for inability will face the same fate as the Krellians. We will not fire the first shot, but we will absolutely fire the last. The broadcast ended and the human fleet began its work. True to Rebecca's word, the Krellian military was systematically dismantled. Weapons were confiscated, warships were broken down for scrap, and monitoring stations were established to ensure compliance. Species that had suffered under Krellian rule for centuries suddenly found themselves free, and many began establishing diplomatic relations with Earth almost immediately. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would reshape interstellar politics for generations to come. Humanity was not to be trifled with. They would pursue peace when possible, but they were fully capable of prosecuting war when necessary, and they possessed both the technology and the will to end any conflict decisively. Supreme Commander Valtrix, stripped of his rank and authority, spent his remaining years in a small dwelling on the Krellian homeworld, watching human monitoring ships patrol the skies overhead. He never forgot the moment when he realized that humanity had been holding back for 2 centuries, that their peaceful demeanor had masked the capabilities of a species that could have conquered the galaxy if they had chosen to do so. They had not chosen conquest. They had chosen peace, but when forced to abandon peace, they had proven utterly ruthless in pursuit of justice. New Terra remained uninhabited, preserved as a memorial to those who had died there. Ships passing through the system would see the ruins and remember the price of mistaking human mercy for human weakness. The galaxy had wanted to test humanity's limits. They had found them, and they would never make that mistake again.